Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about master modes. Okay, now there has been a lot of talk in the community over master modes and the combat rebalance that's happening with the flight model, with weapons, with gimbals, all of the changes. And we talked about this a little bit in a previous video of mine where I talked about the gimbals changes, but now I want to talk about the flight model changes, the combat changes, and all of that stuff, and kind of react or give my opinion about some of the conversations being had in the community about master modes and the combat rebalancing. Now, I know a lot of you have probably seen videos by popular content creators about their opinions about the changes to master modes, and a lot of the opinions are coming from the PvP community, people that have an extensive amount of knowledge with the old system. Okay, this is really valuable feedback because they know what being good in the old system is like. But I think it is also very valuable to get feedback from somebody who didn't spend a lot of time with the old system, who isn't as good with the old system, and to see how their understanding of the new system is and if they like more. Now, there's a lot of talk around what we're losing with master modes, the capabilities, but in reality, there's probably 10% of the community that really will understand and miss these features. Most of the community, in my opinion, doesn't really engage with the top 10% of PvPers in that way, and they're probably not gonna notice. They're probably not gonna miss those things. Okay, so I think it's interesting to get the perspective of somebody who isn't that good with the old system and has the flexibility to learn the new system. So there are a lot of changes with master modes. Okay, the biggest change is the speed changes. Okay, with master modes, you are switching between a standard combat mode and a quantum mode. This quantum mode enables you to go faster without actually engaging your quantum drive. So in the quantum mode, you can fly around and access your top speed, but you don't have your quantum drive on per se. Your quantum drive is needed to access these speeds though. So in quantum mode, you have the full access to your speed limit. Let's say that's 1100 meters a second. And in that mode, you can now spool your quantum drive and quantum jump, and there will be a new type of quantum jump where it is considered quantum boost, where you will be in full control of your ship while you're boosting. So let's say you see a moon, or you can see a feature on a planet, you can now quantum boost to that area, to that region, without having a marker. Now, in the standard quantum mode, you will have to kind of control your ship for a little while until your ship kind of stabilizes and you're in that quantum mode. Now, the new quantum modes inside of the quantum mode, they're not coming in 323. So what we're getting in master modes is just the separation of the speed limits. So instead of having continuous access to your top speed, you now have to switch into that mode. So if you're in combat mode, your speed limit is roughly 400 meters a second. And then when you go into quantum mode, you unlock your top speed. Okay, and you can, of course, spool your quantum drive and jump normally. Okay, so in this standard combat mode or standard control mode, the speed is reduced, and a lot of the feedback that is coming back from the PvP community is that we're losing a lot with this new flight model. So the other changes with master modes is that we're losing tri-quading, and we're getting this new kind of egg-shaped thrust pattern where you have more thrust in the forward direction, and you have kind of an even thrust with left and right and back strafe. Okay, so tri-quading is essentially where you're utilizing directional multi-directional thrust to really go faster. And that has a high skill ceiling. So you're going to hear a lot of members of the community, a lot of people from the PvP community talk about this high skill ceiling. Now, there's a difference between gunnery and the flight model and your flight skills. Okay, so gunnery is going to be, of course, the weapons changes. That is the new gimbals, and we talked about this in a previous video where I kind of went over my thoughts on the gimbals and the kind of auto aim stuff. Now CIG has gone back and kind of dialed down the the kind of aim assist. So now you're not just automatically hitting a ship by getting your weapons close there. So there's a little bit more skill involved in there. But ultimately, with this new gimbal model, apparently how it works is that there will be no more fixed weapons, but you can turn off and on the gimbals. So when you turn off the gimbals, it will essentially be like a fixed weapon, and this increases your fire rate. Okay, so my suggestion in that gimbaled video was not for CIG to increase the fire rate, but to increase the ammo count. And this would only apply to energy weapons. And I think this is more of a high skill ceiling feature, more of a high skill ceiling suggestion. Okay, so really the biggest changes with gunnery is the weapons ranges. So the weapon range has been increased, so you can now fire from much further away. Now, this is an interesting decision, in my opinion, from CIG, because I know the whole reason that they want to introduce master modes is because they want to bring the combat in closer and lower the skill floor for newer players. So the skill ceiling is essentially how good you can get with this feature. The skill floor is how good you have to be to really take advantage of it. And the problem with the current model is that the skill floor is quite high, in my personal opinion. It's not impossible. It's not that you can't engage with it as a regular player, but to really take advantage of the flight model in the current state, you do need to understand certain fundamentals about merging and these different combat maneuvers. Now, the hope is that if you lower the skill floor a little bit, more players can engage with it. And we saw on aUEC the new targeting. Okay, so you will be able to target components, and it kind of seems like in some cases that components being targeted is like kind of half implemented right now. I don't think it's fully implemented right now. I know it's not fully implemented, but the way that it is currently implemented in master modes, I think, is a bit broken. Because and this is a conversation members of the community have had, where someone will fire a missile at your ship, and the splash damage will take out that component even if your shields are up. So someone will fire a missile at you, and the splash damage will take out your shields. And Of course, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't feel good. I think that for uh, you know, the damage output should be, logical, like it is now. Essentially, if somebody fires a missile at you that has an amount of DPS and that affects your shields, if it's a large enough missile, it might take all of your shields down. But realistically, I think that you should have a system where you have to take down a ship's shields to be able to affect this person's components, unless you're using ballistic weapons. So if you're using energy weapons, you shouldn't be able to touch any of the components with the shields up. Okay, if you fire a missile at somebody, the DPS of the missile should affect the shields in a reasonable amount. So let's say a missile is X amount of DPS, and the shields can withstand X amount of DPS. It should take the shields down to whatever percentage that missile can take the shields down to. If the missile is large enough to completely take down your shields, then it should take down your shields, and the remaining DPS should go into your hull, if that makes any sense. But I think that right now, we don't know exactly where that's going to land, because right now, these missiles and certain things can affect the shields. Now, if you are looking at something like the Hammerhead with light fighters, right now, a light fighter can disable the Hammerhead's turret at range without taking its shields down first. Again, in my opinion, that doesn't make any sense. To be able to disable the turrets, you should have to take down that shield face. So let's say that the Hammerhead has you're aiming at a turret on one side of the Hammerhead, that you should focus your firepower on that shield face, and then you can take out the turret. And in that scenario, of course, the Hammerhead pilot can, move power to that shield face. They can move around to the other side. Realistically, it takes a very long time for a light fighter to take down the Hammerhead shields. So that means that for a light fighter to be effective against a Hammerhead, they would have to come in close. Oh, and so I also wanted to insert one quick point about ramming here as I'm editing the video. I just kind of noticed this was something that I didn't cover. I think that the way ramming should work in the game is that, not that CIG gets rid of ramming, but instead make a ship like, let's say a Gladius goes to ram a Hammerhead, for instance. If the shields of the Hammerhead is up, that ship hitting the shields should account for a certain amount of damage that goes into the shields. So of course, if you have capital shields, a ship ramming into you shouldn't have any physical damage. Your shields should kind of defend against it, equal to the size of that ship. Two ships that are the same size or have the same size shields, their shields should kind of like counteract each other. So if two ships with size 1 shields hit each other, it should cancel out and you shouldn't crash. But if a ship with a size 2 shield gets hit by a ship with a size 1 shield, the ship with the size 1 shield should blow up. And I think that kind of will deter ramming, but in certain situations. So obviously, if you want to like kamikaze and take down a certain percentage of a ship's shield, let's say you're in a Hurricane and you're going up against a Perseus. The Perseus obviously has more shields than the Hurricane. The Hurricane would blow up, but it would take down the Perseus shields by that much. That might give another player in the fleet an opportunity to fire and attack and destroy the ship. So I think that would create a way for players to strategically ram, but not just like, oh, well, I want to blow you up right now, I'm just going to ram you. And especially in situations where you have, two light fighters, let's say two gladius going up against each other, they have the same size shields, so ramming just won't do anything. Now, the next thing about this point that I think that CIG can implement is adding dynamic weapon ranges to different weapon sizes and different weapon types. I really think that right now CIG is trying to get a baseline, and future balance might include a feature like this. But I think that it is vital for testing for CIG to add in dynamic weapons ranges for different weapons. Obviously, different weapons like cannons would, more than likely have more range than something like a size 1 energy weapon. All of the ships in the game are going to be capable of combat. They're going to be capable of being engaged in combat. That's kind of one of the reasons why CIG is separating the two modes. So the creating a combat archetype first, and then they're having like maybe sub archetypes that branch off from that are more specific to the type of vehicle that it is. And I know a lot of people have asked questions about the Prospector and the Mole, and they'll have a combat archetype based on size. So maybe the Mole is within, a constellation size, so it will take on that gunship archetype, and then it will have like an industrial sub archetype. Okay, so the movement would be like a gunship, but it will have, slight numbers tweaks to be, more industrialized version of that. I think that to make master modes feel good, they should not change the speeds. I know that some members of the PvP community has suggested that they raise the speeds. I don't think they should do that. I think that they need to try more ships at this speed for us to be able to say that. Right now, we really only have a limited amount of ships that you want to be able to see what it's like when a light fighter engages something like a Mole, for instance, and we don't have the Mole with master modes in Arena Commander right now. So I think that before we even talk about increasing the speeds, we should try and get all the ships at a baseline. So I think that the speed right now is fine. Weapon ranges. This is the next thing. I think weapon ranges needs to be dynamic. I think, or not dynamic, but weapon ranges need to be based on the size of the weapon. Okay, so a size 1 gun is not going to have the same range as a size 5. A size 5 should have a greater range than a size 1. With server sizes and populations and performance, I know a lot of people talked about, the frame rate during the most recent Idris event. The game's obviously not ready to have 50 to 100 gladius swarming around a battlefield, but that's the place that I think that's the place I think everyone wants it to go, where you have just a ton of these things and you have capital ships there to support them. But right now, where the game is, to have the balance make sense, I think that maybe they can set the weapons ranges to, some type of threshold. Bring it down a little bit right now across the board, and then you can start to play with, okay, of course, cannons would have a larger range. Maybe certain size 5s would have more range. You can start to play with and balance the guns and, create little differences between them. And again, I think that would increase the skill ceiling, because players would have to go out and they would have to equip the specific gun for what they want to do. So, if you are in something like an interceptor, you might want a gun with more range because you're going to be in and out and that would prevent you from jousting too much. You don't have that turning speed that a light fighter has, so maybe you want a weapon with a longer range. You're a light fighter, you have more turning speed, so maybe you don't need a weapon with as much range. And I think having that variability in it increases the skill ceiling. Okay, and then of course, what we talked about with shields and components, I think, uh, shields should have to go down first before you can even consider, targeting the components. I think that what we saw on ISC was good, but you shouldn't even be able to target a component through a shield. That doesn't make sense to me. I think that that UI should only pop up once the ship's shields are down. To summarize everything, I think that, the speed should stay the same. I think that weapon ranges need to be more dynamic than they are. I think that, fixed weapons should have more ammo if it is an NG weapon. I think that, of course, targeting should only be done when shields are down. So, the Hammerhead will be a kind of a formidable ship for a light fighter, but in my opinion, that's how it's supposed to be. Right now, I think that to kind of fix what's going on with light fighters to make them more interesting, a lot of people are saying that jousting is still happening. I think that CIG increase the weapon ranges to prevent jousting, thinking that, if somebody is gets at that distance, if somebody gets distance on you're still engaged with them. Like, I think CIG wants the fight to be a close fight, but they understand that some players don't have the skills to keep the fight close. So I think that's why they have these long weapon ranges, is so that if your enemy gets out on you, when you're in a dogfight and you're an inexperienced player, you try to close the gap so you can get within weapons range and start firing on this person. And a lot of people go head on when they do this. And of course, the enemy, your opponent, does the same thing if they're inexperienced. And so what ends up happening is that you're jousting. And CIG wants to combat this by reducing the urge to close that gap. And if you do get out on your opponent, let's say you're headed towards your opponent is heading towards you, you could swing around without having to race towards them again. You're still engaged. So even though they want the combat to be close range, a lot of inexperienced people, they're just gonna fly by each other a whole bunch. And in that scenario, CIG wants to keep them in the fight, and I think that's why the weapon ranges are so far. Again, this is just a feeling. This is just a hunch. CIG hasn't said that's why the weapons ranges are so far. That's just what I think they are thinking when they made the weapon ranges so far. I think they should close that though. At those distances, it should be considered disengaging. And with the current weapons distances, it's not. So again, I know this video is kind of all over the place, but there's just a lot to cover with master modes. I think there's still a lot that needs to be done. I don't think it's in a dire state. I think the light fighter that still needs more work to be done. I think CIG admitted that they still have more work to do on light fighters, but I don't think that there should be a meta. And I think that having a lower skill floor is a good thing for an MMO. Because you have to keep in mind, this game's not Battlefield, this game's not Tarkov. A lot of people are going to be doing different things in this game. They're going to be different ships for different purposes, different careers. You also want that progression to be in the game. you need to create a system that people want to engage with first. You can't just blame the player for not wanting to learn a broken, buggy, flight model and combat system. You got to make that system good. You got to give them a reason to learn it, and they will learn it and they will get good at it. But yeah, that's going to be it for me here today in this video. I know a lot of stuff was talked about. Let me know what your opinions of master modes are. Let me know what your opinions are of, from different content creators that put out videos talking about master modes. I love talking to you guys. I love the discussion. I love this community. This game has an amazing community, one of the best communities in gaming, and I think that keeping that going, keeping that discourse, everybody's feedback matters. You have a voice, speak up. Let's talk about it. Let's share your opinions. I might be wrong. Everything I say in this video might be, it could change. And a lot of things with this new master modes and the flight model and gunnery, all of that stuff could change too before the game comes out. It's all about balance. So let's definitely talk about it and share our thoughts. But I want to thank you guys for watching this video and for hanging out with me again. You guys have been really supporting the channel, really supporting the videos, and it means a lot to me. It really does. I love talking to you guys. Like I said, engaging with this community is a lot of fun. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me here in today's video. And like I always say at the end of these videos, you guys like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Salute.